Thanks for Rina. Thanks for everyone. So Ray, do you want to do the recording?
Yeah. The recording has already started.
Okay.
So,
yeah, thank you.
Hi, everyone. So thank you for your time. Good afternoon. So today we're honored to have Rina. So she is our senior curriculum consultant from Korea with her expertise in both EFL and ELA to conduct this session. And just as a preview, so following this season, we will have sessions almost monthly. So stay tuned for our updated sessions next month. Currently, the target is on May 12th. So we will have another session also hosted by Rina in May. And after the session, we also will kindly ask you to help us conduct a post session survey to help us and to voice out any of your questions or concerns. Okay, and without further ado, I'm handing over to Rina. So yeah, thank you, Rina.
Thank you so much. Just, I want to share my screen first.
Yeah.
A great introduction, Ray. Thank you so much. I don't think I can control.
Yeah, you can. You can control.
Okay, controller. Wait, can you help me to go up? Can you control this slide?
I cannot control your slide. Yeah. Or would you like to close and reshare?
Here.
Can you control it now?
Yes, actually, but it's not moving.
Rina, how about you start presenting your slide first, and then I'll click share screen.
Okay.
Yeah, you just click start presenting first. Okay.
So hello everyone. It's very nice to meet you all. Oh, maybe right here. So can you see my screen?
No, Rina. So can you start presenting first? You want to click present first? Yeah.
And anyway, so today actually, thank you for joining for today. Like Ray say, I'm really honored to be here and talk about the agendas for today right here. So there are basically two different sessions, but basically three, but the session itself is only divided into two. And first half, we are going to talk about what the US ELA program is, and then we can talk about vocab acquisition, because vocab is kind of one of the core pillars to develop the language, right? And second part is about close reading routine part one. So we can talk about the basic concept of close reading and also first stage of read stage and also genre study. And session two, the second half of the session, it will be about talking about the close reading as well. But this one is about like comprehensive skills and strategies. Okay, there are like two different parts, and between session 1 and 2, we will have break time. Okay. Oh, and also if you have a question, just let me know anytime you want, or you can leave your question in the chat box and I will take her down at the end of the session if it's okay. Okay, this one is like agenda for part 1. So do you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay. So first, number one is about what the US ELA program is, because you should know what it is. Of course, you know what it is, but I need to talk about all the pedagogic background of this program. And then number two is the vocab acquisition. So what is vocab acquisition, and what is the research-based vocab acquisition teaching methodology? And also we can talk about how we can apply in the US ELA program, and we can have a Q&A. This is about the part one. So basically, US ELA program is designed to teach native speaker of English, okay? So they try to master their own language. So there are 4 core pillars to build this program. First, of course, it is reading. So from the foundational skills to the learning knowledge or making meaning out of it, we will have to build certain skills. And then there'll be writing. So students have to write argumentative or narratives or research reports. So US ELA program try to teach all the skills for this writing as well. And also speaking and listening. This is kind of like every lesson is type of conversation. It's always interactive. So they do have some discussion sometimes, and also they do have some presentation skills. All academic setting, that's why they need to learn how to speak or listen in academic settings as well. Finally, there will be a language. So it's not just everything includes, but it is about grammar, usage, and about academic vocabulary expansion. Okay? So these are basically 4 core pillars of US ELA program. And for the native speaker assumptions, using this type of US ELA program will be tools for thinking development, okay? And also they think this is kind of software updates with critical thinking and sophisticated expressions. But these are basically what it is. But why is it important to us, like people or students like EFL setting in Korea or Taiwan? Because it is very systematic and trustworthy program, because it has academic standards behind of it. So it is called Common Core State Standards. So nowadays, not many US ELA programs are talking about Common Core States out loud, but in the backbone is all about Common Core. So what is Common Core State Standards is right there. This is kind of academic standards for English, language arts, and also literacy. And this one try to help our students be independent learners when it comes to college or career. So try to build or try to develop independent students in college and career. That's what it is. And the standards are based on research and expert consensus. That's why it's not just talking about language level, but they are talking about a student's cognitive level and like development stage and also language skills level as well. So these are very comprehensive. That's why when we use this program, we have benefits from it. So to compare standard ELT and standard US ELA features. The focus is for ELT, that's all about communication. But for ELA, it's all about thinking skill development. So like critical thinking and high order thinking. And also content is about daily life in ELT. On the other hand, US ELA program, they do have high level academics. For myself, ELT should be explicit, but ELA is more implicit. Those type of differences are there. So with all the trustworthy standards and then authentic contents in it, I think we should, if we use this US ELA program, it will be beneficial for us. And as I mentioned just before, nowadays, not many US ELA programs are talking aloud about Common Core, but nowadays we are talking about science of reading more. Science of reading is nothing to do with reading science, but this is about a vast body of evidence-based research. This explains how human brain works when they learn reading and writing. Different from speaking, reading is kind of like requiring some systematic instruction. Speaking is kind of natural. If you like exposed to English speaking nature, then you will pick up some words and try to learn your speaking skills. But reading is not like that. So there are 2 different strands. First one is called word recognition, And second one, we called language comprehension. So word recognition, your students have to develop all the foundational skills of English. So for example, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics, decoding, high frequency words recognition, stuff like that. And they will decode the letter and sound. They will recognize everything. Then they have to make some meaning out of it. That is called language comprehensions. So we have to teach background knowledge, vocab development, language structure, verbal reasoning, or literacy knowledge. So these two strands should be interwoven quite effectively. And also, every aspect over here, it should be taught in an explicit and systematic way. That's what it is. That's why nowadays, all the new US ELA program, they are teaching skills in an explicit and systematic way in the student book. That's the main message you can take away. So this research is from the evidence from the research that is conducted for more than 2 decades. Okay, so that's why this is very trustworthy as well. And this term is not from me. Actually, there are great authorship team behind those programs. We don't have to talk about each individual like doctors over here, but they are kind of reviewing. They give all the advice, or they sometimes write some contents of the USAID program. That is why they come up with this concept of science of reading. Okay. So to compare, there are many different types of USAID programs. So like Journey, Storytime, Reading Street, these types are just we call pre-Common Core State Standards USAID program. And post-Common Core, it's called Into Reading, My View, and Wonders Global. There are different types. Right? I would like to compare a little bit because I want to give you like bigger pictures in your mind about USAID program. So publishers will be vary in pre-Common Core State Standards textbooks. And after in post-Common Core, they'll be Into Reading, My View Literacy, and Wonders Global, and Wonders USA, of course. And I want to compare the text type. So they'll be anchor text and shared read type. So anchor text is just authentic text. So there's no control. It's just written for like different purpose, not for education. But shared read is also the authentic, but they are designed for the teaching. So we try to build some of the learning points in the text. That's why we call shared read, and the other one's anchor text. Even in students in US, they are struggling with this anchor text. That's why, like Wonders, USC, of course, they do have like short texts before anchor text. Even Into Reading and My View, they do have some preparation short texts to enter into anchor texts. And scaffolding lesson in the student book. Of course, like before Common Core, they do not have to teach every single aspect of learning in the student book. That's why it's kind of mid-low level. But for like after Common Core, like science of reading, we need to teach every skills in an explicit and systematic way. That's why underscore over here, they put every skill sets in the student book. And My View is kind of mid-high, and Into Reading is kind of mid. And also for the EFL resources, it's right here. So underscore has most like powerful EFL supports. The other one's kind of mid-level, okay? The reason I share this is that you need to know what brands is out there. And based on your needs, you can choose whatever you want, okay? But before you choose the book, I think you need to know what's the like trustworthy or like a value of contents to in the USAID program. So first is vocab acquisition. Vocab acquisition is learning a new words basically, but it's not just the meaning of it. Actually, they have to know. I mean, students have to know its word form, the word forms, and also meaning, grammatical function, and social usage as well. So it's not just a memorization. It's more like how to understand the vocab itself and how we can use it in appropriate usage, and of course appropriate context as well. And then vocab acquisition is also called engine of child's education development. So if they have enough vocab pull in their mind that English learning, it will be much easier. That's why vocab acquisition is kind of core in EFL setting, of course. So in Korea, we do teach, or we do like train the students to learn as many vocab words as they can. That's our purpose. But it's a little bit different from how we approach in ELT setting. So it's like this. So vocab acquisition is kind of continuum of learning. So like here, it can be covered like receptive vocabulary and productive vocabulary. So receptive vocabulary will be like heard or seen. So they will have to understand by listening and reading the language. Of course, receptive set is significantly larger than productive set. So when they use the word, that means they know and they acquire vocabulary quite well and try to use them in an appropriate the context. So that's why we have to teach them both contexts and also develop two different aspects. And then there'll be incidental and intentional learning. So for native speaker of English, if they just go home or they visit other like a library or other community center, they will pick up some words because everybody speaks English, right? But in Korea or Taiwan, I don't think if they go out, English context is not quite there, right? That's why we have to teach them all the explicit vocab acquisition. It is called intentional acquisition, right? So we will have to cover both of them. So, students have to be like exposed to the English speaking environment or English usage environments. And then they need to intentionally learn vocab acquisition, okay? And then there'll be 4 different depths of word knowledge. First off, they need to understand collocation. So what are the like friends with this word, right? They need to learn meaningful chunks, right? And also they need to understand connotation, right? They need to understand the meaning of it and what's like feels like this, right? Is it positive, negative, or neutral, right? And then morphology, this is kind of formatting, right? So sometimes they do have root words and then they do have prefix or suffix, right? Then the meaning will be a little bit changed and they need to understand those kind of mechanics as well. And also the register, is it proper? This word is proper for this context. Those kind of concepts they need to also learn. So we need to teach like many different types of like aspects in here, but in EFL setting, we are kind of like focus on like collocation or connotation or morphology, basically. Of course, register we need to teach them, but this will be built like when we have them read more readings or when we expose our students to more English usage context, they will get it. But anyway, what we have to focus is intentional acquisition and also receptive and productive vocabulary acquisition, and also collocation, connotation, and morphology, okay? And when it comes to USELA program, what kind of vocabulary we are teaching is right there, academic vocabulary, not just general vocabulary, but these words are only used in the academic setting. That's why academic vocabulary are used in academic reading and writing. So, for example, watch is just a general words, right? It's a kind of everyday English, right? But watch for an academic term will be observe, right? So they're gonna learn those type of academic levels of vocabulary. Also, when they learn this academic vocabulary, they can build some subject area knowledge as well. So people says like Korean language is more like a grammar-based language, but English is more like a vocab-based language. So if they learn many vocabulary as they can, then it will be much easier for them to acquire English language. So there are 3 tiers like this. So in academic vocabulary, there will be high frequency words, general academic words, and domain specific vocabulary words. So in USELA program, they covers all of them, but also it depends on their level, okay? So for example, like high frequency words is like frequently like written or students can see in the written text. So it's not like sight words, right? Sight words is more bigger pool, right? This one is about written language, and they should recognize it. So for example, like look, it's kind of high frequency words for science book. For the literacy, maybe I, she, and those type of high frequency words will be there. But when it comes to subject matter area, those size high frequency words will be there, right? You can see this can be like general or like general academic vocabulary, but this is more like academic based high frequency words. And then when the level goes up, they will learn more vocabulary that is related to understanding written texts or try to understand speaking or conversations between teachers and students and between students and students. So they're going to learn how to communicate with those language. So it's not like everyday conversation, right? Like I said, we can say watch, but observe is better fit for those academic setting, right? And then level goes up, there'll be domain specific vocabulary. So this one related to the subject matter, so physics or biology or those kind of domain specific vocabulary, they'll have to learn more about it. So for example, like grade K and 1, they usually focus on high frequency words. This is kind of essential vocabulary to develop their own language, right? And then the level goes up, like grade 1, second semester, like grade 1, unit 4, they will learn general academic words, right? And then from grade 2 level, they start to learn more general academic words. But when they get to grade 4 level, they will be more exposed to domain-specific vocabulary because it will be more deeper of subject matter, okay? Okay, now we know about what to teach in our academic setting, right? And now it's time to talk about how to teach in a very systematic and research-based way. This one was from these people over here. They actually researched the most effective ways of learning vocabulary. Of course, in Korea, we have them memorize a lot. Yeah, that's happening. Memorization is also necessary too. But basically, when you teach the vocabulary, you have to define the vocabulary. They need to know the meaning of it. But the definition itself, it should be student-friendly language. It's not teacher-friendly language, right? After that, they'll have to see the sentence level context. So they need to know how this word is used in the example, right? So they might not have enough knowledge about the vocabulary, so they do not know how to use it, right? So we will give them more model, right? And also they will understand the vocab meaning from the context. Finally, it's not done yet. Of course, before that, they can memorize some vocabulary. But right here, we will have to ask some questions using the vocabulary. So they need to actually use the vocabulary to apply their vocab knowledge with their partner or the teacher, okay? So this is more like application. So this is more like a define, example, and application. These three ways is most effective ways to do that. That's why all the US ELA programs, they actually follow these instructions. Okay, so memorization is one of the strategy, but to have them understand and how to use them, this is more effective. Okay, so I want to show you how is vocab acquisition applied in the US ELA program. So this is example page of Wonders Global. So this is grade K level. So for grade K level, it's most of it is more like high frequency words or phonics words, because in grade K level, their main reading is about decodable readers. That's why the main vocabulary is the phonics words sometimes. Of course, like chair here, this is not a phonics words. This is kind of a high frequency words for them. So how to teach this vocabulary is right here. Try to talk about the picture context, and then they can talk about the meaning of it. Without picture context, it is difficult for them to understand the meaning of the word. And then they will see the example sentence, how we can use this word in the sentence, right? So they will see the location of the word and try to understand how we can use this word in the sentence level. Grade 1 level, it's a little bit more complex. So first off, we can start from the picture, of course, picture context, and then you can go through the meaning of the word. As you can see here, there is not like root words. This one is exact format with the reading text. In the reading text, they use this word in a third person singular form, right? That's why we give this exact same form with the reading text. And then we can talk about the meaning of it. Helps means you give a hand when someone is in trouble. If they understand right away, then you can move on. But if they're still struggling, you have to give more explanation. But we don't know yet, right? Teachers it's hard to know if they understand or not. So you have to move on. The next one is like example sentence. They'll have to read aloud. And usually this example sentence is describing the picture. And then the question in blue, this is about application. So after they know or understand this vocab meaning and how to use them, and they will have to answer this question using the vocab knowledge they have learned, right? So who helps you at home? So if they understand what it means, then they can answer this question right away. But of course, there are always solo students. Then you can give them a little bit of examples, like your father, mother, or older sister, or older brother, something like that, right? They use that. They can actually come up with their own answer. If there are slower students, then you can give them like language frame for this question. Those type of scaffolding will be happening. But anyway, in the student book, they do have those step-by-step teaching methodology. And also, at the end of the lesson, they will have to make their own example sentences. This is kind of true applications, right? And then when you refer to this word list like this, they will learn or they can review all the vocabulary at home. So with the word lists, there will be two different types of sentence context, and there'll be definition as well, right? So they can review at home, right? Repetition is very necessary for the students in Korea, right? So, of course, Taiwan as well. So I think these supports is right there. What about grade 2 then? Grade 2 is more like general academic vocab words. So here, of course, same as other grades, they will have to talk about picture contexts. And then they need to talk about this word, part of speech, definition, example sentence, and activities in blue, right? So like this blue, they will understand the vocab quite well. And they know how to use them when they need them, right? So here, everything is right there, and they have a meaning, part of speech, an example, and then activities there, and you'll have to go through exact same way. And then at the end of the lesson, it's not anymore to make them have them make the example sentences. This is more challenge activity. They'll have to pick 3 words and have them make questions and talk about these questions with their partner. In Korea, students are well trained. That's why they can just make example sentence like this quick. But making a question is a little bit different story. This is kind of true application for the students. So when they use them, it will be retention of learning, right? So of course they have to memorize sometimes, but use this kind of research-based teaching methodology. It's more natural to understand what it is. Okay. Okay. Before I move on, do you have any questions so far? I want to talk about a little bit different. Of course, it is related to academic vocabulary, but it's all about basic learning, right? Any question?
If you have any question, please feel free to type in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Okay. If you don't have any questions, I want to move on to vocab strategy. So like I said, we need to focus on collocations or morphology or like other things, right? So in vocab strategy, it happens in grade 2 level. So they are talking about the features of vocabulary. For example, there'll be homographs or like suffixes, like prefixes, or inflection endings. Those type of more support is right there. So for example, like homographs are exactly same spelling, right? But they do have different meaning, right? And sometimes it has different pronunciations as well. So there are examples over here. Try to explain what it is, and there'll be modeling. So down can be two different meanings, right? It can be used as verb like this, and it can be used as a noun, right? Fluffy feathers. After that, you can move on to this one. They can go back to the story again and try to figure out what the word hatch means, right? This one also homographs. They need to understand the context, and then based on the context, they will figure out what's the meaning of it, right? So in here, I think hatch is used as a verb, right? So they need to understand that and try to explain to the teachers. Of course, for the slow students, you will have to give them more scaffolding, right? So for example, you can give them more visual aids or pictures, for example. So there'll be two different pictures of hatch, like a baby bird coming out of the egg, and the other one is kind of cell, like a door, right? So you can compare these two. Or you can have another scaffolding lessons behind of this, or before you get to this word, okay? So in US ELA program, they try to cover every aspect they need to learn in the academic vocabulary is all there, okay? This type of lesson in other USALA program, they are usually in the teacher's edition, but this program has all the teaching tips or the teaching lesson is included in the student book, okay? So you can refer to. So what kind of vocabulary you will build is right there. Academic vocabulary, and how to build it is you have to define, define an example and ask. 3 different steps. And then there'll be more things to do. The vocab strategy will help them not to look up the dictionary whenever they encounter a new or unfamiliar words. They will have to figure out the word meaning from the context. That's the purpose of it. Okay, that's how they teach in USALA program. Okay, it's very different from the ELT, right? ELT is quite straightforward, right? But this one is more like deeper level of thinking and deeper level of understanding, okay? Okay, I want to get some questions. If you do not have any questions, I can move on to second part.
So again, feel free to type in the chat box if you have any question. If you don't have any now, so don't worry. So afterwards, please fill out your question in our post event survey. So Rena, I think we can proceed for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's move on to part 2 then. Part 2 is about close reading routine. So we have enough vocab knowledge now, right? It's now time to move on to reading, right? So to fill in the gap, it's not just vocab, right? It should have some reading skills to fill up the gaps between US ELA and ELT. So here are 3 different parts. One is what is close reading routine? And then there'll be different stages in close reading routine. So I'm going to cover some of them in here. And after a break, I can talk about more. Okay, this is all about close reading routines. So we need to understand what it is. Before we jump in, we can talk about different depths of understanding of reading texts. So this is like this: literal comprehension, inferential comprehension, and prepositional comprehension. So literal means it's out there, right? Just going through the text, you will find all the answer, like who, what, when, where, right? This kind of simple question. And then they will learn like basic storyline or basic understanding of the texts, right? After that, inferential comprehension is about going deeper. So this information is not stated explicitly, right? They are kind of hide behind the text. That's why we need to dig out using all the text evidence. That's what they have to do. So we're gonna learn more craft type of knowledge. And then after they gather every knowledge, it's time to use them, how to integrate those knowledge to different setting. Then their learning remains in their mind quite long. That's the main purpose. There are three different types of levels of comprehensions. So close reading is like that. So for example, it's kind of layers of reads, right? It's not like all at once type of reading. Okay, they need to visit same text several times, maybe at least 3 times. Okay, and then they will gather different information each time. Right here, first read, it is called a first stage. So they will get all the gist from the reading text. For example, they will get main idea or supporting ideas and key details. Okay, so like I said, very simple question like who, when, what, where. Those kind of questions can be answered from first read. Now we'll revisit the story and then try to figure out the how and why there. So why this author chose this words or patterns or sentences or paragraphs. They try to understand how these texts are constructed, right? So those kind of understanding will be accumulated. So for example, like it is nothing is like noticing the author uses strong words for how happy the boy is. That kind of reason why this author used those words. So try to understand author's craft and author's intention. Third visit, it's time to make a meaning out of it. So for example, they try to understand deeper meaning and hidden message from the text and try to use them to connect our real life. So they're gonna use this knowledge to their real life. This makes the knowledge alive, not like a dead knowledge in the classroom. So they're gonna have their own like ownership of the learning when they do the third read. So this kind of step is right there. So they actually, USALA program, they actually accept or have this concept in their own academic curriculum. So for example, this one is close reading routine in USALA program. Like the first read, second read, and third read, they do have similar routines here. Read, it's all about finding out important details and ideas. And they will summarize, try to gather key details, right? This is kind of surface area. And then it's time to go deeper. This time, they will analyze the text craft and structure. So they're gonna understand how and why the author uses those kind of crafts. And then they will have to integrate knowledge and ideas together. So this is this time to transfer the knowledge to different setting, right? So like vocabulary, the real knowledge should be used in the new setting, okay? If they repeat same content or same reading all the time, they might feel they know everything, but that's not the case, right? If they use the skills to pretty new setting, then they will do some true application and the knowledge is become their real ones, right? It's not like borrowing information, but this is real learning, okay? So, like I mentioned, there are different stages, right? So the second part is about read stage. Read stage is very simple, right? So read stage, we are going to check all the basic understanding of the text. For example, they're gonna check their fluency. Young learners, they will have to check the phonics words, vocabulary, like, decoding skills, everything should be checked, okay? And then they need to talk about vocab acquisition. If there's any unfamiliar words, they will have to go through and check, right? And also teachers will ask all the key detail related questions or text dependent question in read stage. And reread is more a critical analysis of the story. So we are going through genre features, and we are going to use comprehensive skills and strategies to understand the text better. And then we also talk about text features as well. Finally, we are making connections to different media. For example, they're gonna make connections between the reading themes, and then they're gonna connecting to like different texts, photos, fine arts, or even different subjects as well. So this is called make connections. And there'll be research and inquiry as well. And also there'll be writing as well. You know, language is not just receptive, right? It has to be, when you listen, students have to speak, right? When they read, they'll have to write. Maybe this integration is all about developing the thinking. So read and reread, it's all about accepting the knowledge, of course, proactively, right? But integrate is more like using it in other settings, okay? That's the main thing. So I want to show you this read the stage example. So for example, this is grade K level. So what we have to check is their basic knowledge of high frequency words and phonics. So in the side margin, they're all scaffolded instructions. So they'll have to look for the high frequency words and phonics words. And finally, they need to know how to find text evidence. This is basic skills for grade K level. Yes. You know, finding text evidence is very important skills to develop. For grade 1 level, this is more advanced. Right here, they need to look for phonics words as well, and also high frequency words, and there'll be comprehension checkup. By doing so, they need to find all the text evidence. So they are learning how to annotate the knowledge right next to the reading. Okay, that's what it is about. So going through the side margin, it's all about gathering information, important information. This one. Okay. Finding text evidence. Text evidence is not just from the text, right? It should be in the illustrations or some artworks as well. Then this is grade 2 level. Grade 2 level has more to do, right? First off, they need to think about how we can make some strategies. You know, strategy, I'm going to talk about it in the second half of the lesson today, but just for the brief explanation, this one is about how to access the complex text. So to make predictions, they need to gather important evidence to do so. And then when they move on, they need to confirm and revise their own predictions. It's right there, right? And paragraph 2 in read stage, they need to figure out the features of the genre. Okay, so what makes this story folk tales, right? They need to understand the features of it. So I'm going to talk about genre in like few minutes later. But anyway, they need to go through those knowledge at first, and then in the reread, they need to go deeper, right? How does the author use exclamation points to show how the boy feels? Why does this author use exclamation mark there, not quotation or not everything else, right? Because maybe this author tried to show the strong emotions of the characters, right? Those kind of crafts they need to understand. This kind of step-by-step routine will help them to understand text better. You know, in like other textbooks, like not USELA, but ELT, it's very straightforward, right? Just checking their comprehension, right? Comprehension is just the first stage. It's just surface level. But to understand better, they need to know how to dig more deeper understanding or deeper information, okay? That's the key thing. And then now it's time to talk about reread, right? We already talked about read stage. So now we have all the basic story information, right? Vocabulary, phonics, high frequency words, even unknown vocabulary or key details, right? It's time to deeper into. So it's time to critical analysis. So first part is about genre study. First part of the close reading routine. So why is it important and why do we have to care about it? It's all about it. So what is genre? I think everyone knows what is genre, right? Genre is a label that tells audience or readers what to expect from the story. And then is also organization of literature or text into categories based on the type of writing, writing the piece exemplifies through its particular content, form, or style. So those are very important features of genre, right? This is like a definition. We know, when you go to a movie, you always think about the genre. What genre is the movie, right? And you know the features already. But now our students, maybe they know like briefly, but not quite in detail, right? So we need to check. The purpose of teaching genre. Genre will set up the expectations. So it's kind of ready rules. So children immediately know if a story will have magic or facts. Then based on that, they will know what's going to happen. Their expectations are there, right? So if it's fantasy, they try to find some lessons from it, right? If it's the facts, they try to gather some of the information from the text, right? It's kind of, by looking at the genre, they will be ready for the reading, right? So this is kind of warm up their brain, okay? Number two, it will be about like organize the mind, right? It's like a mental focus. So for example, if they have like enough knowledge of a genre, before they get into or already get into the reading, they try to understand or filing the cabinet of the information. So for example, oh, poetry has this type of feature, and nonfiction should have this type of feature. And realistic fiction, they do have this type of fiction, something like that. So they need to filing their own knowledge inside, which means they can remember easily. And whenever they need to use, they can pull out this information to that task, okay? So filing up is very, very important mental processing, okay? That's why teaching genre will help them to understand better about this type of process. And number three, when they read, they will have to write, right? But if they know the features of genre of what they read, then it's easier for them to write exact same genre they have read so far. Okay? So it's kind of blueprint for the writing, okay? So they will know what to look for, right? When they write. So for example, if it's fantasy, there'll be imaginary characters and imaginary settings and imaginary events. That's fine. And also they should have some kind of lessons inside, right? That's the main thing to do. If it's informational text, they will have to think about main ideas and key details, how we can add more effective ways to support my ideas, right? Those kind of features will be needed when they write their own writing, okay? So this will be blueprint for their writing templates. And then they will kind of transfer their knowledge to different books, right? Oh, of course, they can read in schools or like any like any after school programs, but they can read by themselves, right? When they do that, they will know what to choose and based on the knowledge, genre knowledge, okay? They can apply the knowledge they've learned from you, and then they can apply when they choose to read. Okay? That's why teaching genre will make them more develop or more automaticity. So I think it's better. And for example, like this one, it's about like general purpose, right? But for the academic setting, I think it's very important, right? Foundations of genre study in United States in USLA program, right? So in the subject matter, the genre will be lenses depending on whether they are reading a science book or a history book, right? There'll be different types of genre there, and they have to learn about different features of science-based reading and also historical or literature-based reading, okay? So like the general meaning also reflects on this usage, but this one is more, this one is more like understandable. So for example, if they know what to look for in science-related reading, it's easier for them to understand. It's easier for them to follow what to find, right? So for example, it should be domain of objectivity and data, right? So when they read scientific texts, they need to follow this type of process. First, they need to understand objectivity. So they need to read the facts and evidence rather than personal feelings or opinions, which means there should be some support for the objectivity, right? And then in scientific text, they do have data-driven reasoning to support this objectivity, right? Drawing conclusions based on numerical data or evidence or experimental results. So they need to know how to unlock those special text features as well. So that's why when we teach the genre, they can apply those knowledge to their other subjects as well. And of course, procedure recounts. The ability to navigate and understand structured information, such as the specific steps of an experiment or natural process. But they will know how to follow the step-by-step instructions in scientific texts. So without knowledge of them, I think they will have to look for or try to build every knowledge whenever they see the new texts, okay? So they will have to have enough knowledge to decide what kind of skills they have to equip, okay? That's very important. What about some history or social studies or literature based? This is more like a perspective and context, right? So in contrast, reading history, social studies requires critical analysis. So for example, they need to know analyzing author's purpose, why this one is wrote like this, and then identifying why this author used those kind of feature here. What is its intention? Do you think it is the intention achieved to do something? So they will have to understand those things. That means they need to go back and try to look for different features than the scientific texts. And then they need to understand historical context, right? So this one's kind of true, right? This is kind of facts, but it doesn't have sometimes the like numerical like data or evidence or experimental results. What they have is just a specific era, circumstances, or the context of the history, right? So they have to understand the historical context using the knowledge they have learned. And then rhetorical techniques, like analyzing how the author uses language. So for example, parallel structure or understatement, maybe it is easier to like persuade or influence readers' perspectives. Readers have their own perspectives always, right? So for example, if social studies, they also talk about like rules and everything, but this is all about perspectives. It shouldn't be biased or, you cannot show any stereotypes, right? Instead, they will have to give all the circumstances or like a righteous right there, right? So when they see or when they read this historical or social studies or literature, what they have to use is totally different from what they have to use in the scientific texts, right? That is why when we teach genre effectively, they have better knowledge of the language, and they'll be very proactive when they're learning in English, okay? And reading is quite easier when they have some roadmap right here. So before they actually jump into main reading, if they understand what the genre is, they might know or they might expect what's going to happen. So they are ready to gather new information. So if they're not ready, then it's really hard them to put new knowledge in their own schema, right? Schema is very important. Schema is kind of map in their mental, right? So when they have some schematic knowledge, and when you try to put some new information, there should be some familiar connections between them. That's why when you teach genre, it will be accumulate, and they will know before they jump in without reading it, they will know what's going to happen briefly. And then they will have to check if my roadmap is right or wrong. So that's why learning is not just passive, but it will be more proactive. That's the main purpose, okay? So in sum is right here. So reading science texts and reading historical or social studies. So here, primary goal is to understand facts and data accurately. So they need to know how to see or how to analyze text features as well. For example, like tables, bar graphs sometimes, right? And for the history or social studies, they need to analyze perspectives and hidden intents of the author. Okay, this is very important. And the key focus, the reading science text is all about objectivity, structure, and process. But for reading history and social studies, it's all about context, rhetoric, and persuasion. Okay, these are very important. And students' role will be an observer gathering information. And for the history and social studies subject, there'll be analysts. Okay, they need to look for more deeper knowledge from the text. Okay, these are big differences. Okay, any questions so far? I hope it's
yeah, Rena, we do have questions, but it's from Emily. So it's in the chat box. It's regarding the grammar and vocabulary in the program. Can you see the chat box?
Okay, let me check.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Okay. For grammar, we are finding that there isn't enough being taught to keep up with the amount of vocabulary learned. Do you know any schools that also have this issue? How should we better address this? Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Actually, grammar should come later than the vocabulary, right? So they need to build enough vocabulary first. So for example, grammar for the lower level, what you have to do is you need to focus on meanings first from the grammar even. And then when the level goes up, like 2 or 3 years, then you can talk about the accuracy there. Okay, fluency is more important for the lower level. So like you said, there are many schools in Korea. They do have similar issues, right? Because we don't have, our students do not have enough knowledge or enough pool to talk about rules yet, right? So to help them to try to fill in the gap, I think your students have learn a lot more vocabulary, then they can have some grammar, okay? And of course, you can teach the grammar, even though they do not have enough vocab knowledge. But in that case, you have to share the patterns, basically, not like real rules, okay? That is very important. So for the primary level, like until up to grade 3 level, I think you should focus on the fluency. So they need to say whatever they need. Of course, you have to correct them from time to time, but not like grade 4 level. From grade 4, I think you should teach them accuracy, and their activities will be different, right? So I think this kind of issue is happening many different places. So what you have to do is try to focus vocab development first. They will have to have at least 500 words, okay, to keep up. And then you can talk about grammar in detail or in an accuracy, okay? So if it's the case, then they will understand what will be happening and they will know how to use them properly, okay? Is there, oh, this is other question, right? We have questions about vocab grammar. Okay, you just leave for integral part the pages, how much time? Oh, okay. So there are so much vocab pages to cover, but so little grammar. How can we better apply that into genre writing? Oh, that's really good question. So genre writing, like I said, vocabulary comes first. Before reading or writing or grammar, vocabulary should be not complete, but it should be sufficient enough, right, for the students, right? So vocab page should be covered quite well. And then they just say whatever they want or write whatever they want. For grade K and 1, you don't have to like talk about all the accuracy right away, okay? They'll have to write the vocabulary in the context whenever which way they want to do it, okay? Then after that, you can give them a correct answer, but not to focus on too much correction. Overcorrection is always backlash, okay? So please focus on the vocab first, and then they can do their own writing. But the problem is genre writing means it's about like grade 2 level, right? Grade 2 level should have enough vocabulary. If they do not have enough vocabulary, then I don't think they are ready to move on to genre writing. Maybe they can learn types like how to write a sentence or paragraph level, that's fine. But genre writing, they have to have enough vocab knowledge, and at the same time, they need to have enough grammar knowledge as well, okay? But for grade 2 level, sometimes it's happening. They do have enough vocabulary, but little grammar, right? Then it's time to talk about grammar rules more. Just this one is only for the students who have enough vocab knowledge in their mind, okay? So you should understand that. Then you can move on to vocab knowledge, because it's vocab is very important, and then grammar also is very important. But there is a kind of sequential order. Okay, always vocab comes first. If they are confident, they should be confident about their vocab knowledge, and then they can move on to grammar accuracy. I don't mean you shouldn't teach grammar, but you have to teach, but that grammar approach will be different from the later level, okay? And the second question is about how much time do you recommend that we spend on those pages? I mean, make connections and research and inquiry. It depends on your curriculum. So can I like revisit this question when I talk about part 3? Because I just briefly actually prepared some slides for that, okay? I hope it's okay. Do I answer your questions? Need more explanation?
Okay, thank you, Emily, and thank you, Rena. So I think, Emily, if you have any feedback, please feel free to type in the chat box. And Rena, I think we can move on for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. Though. Very good questions, actually. Are your maybe you can leave your feedbacks about my answer. I'm going to move on to what kind of genre is like handled in USELA program. There are actually those: realist fiction, fantasy, folktale, fable, historical fiction, drama, myth, poetry, expository text, informational text, biography, persuasive text, narrative nonfiction, argumentative texts. For examples like this. So these are very famous award-winning realist fictions. They're all real, not real, but it can be happening in real life. Then there'll be fantasy, the very famous fantasy, right here, Harry Potter, right? I think many of you love to read Harry Potter. And then there'll be Jefferson's Son. This is kind of historical fiction. And then there'll be biography, and there'll be Ivan. This is narrative nonfiction. This is about like gorilla story. Gorilla, which lived in like in a mall like for 37 years, something like that. And then now he's in the very nice environment zoo. So it's very good for him. But anyway, so those kind of genres in the USELA program, of course not Harry Potter, because I do not find the famous fantasy story there. That's why I just chose this one. But anyway, these are the examples. I want to go deeper, okay? So for realistic fiction, I think there is a purpose. So everything is just a fiction. It's all made up, but it can be happening in real life. That's why students can easily reflect their life onto the characters in realistic fiction. So in realistic fiction, they always have some problems and solutions, and also relationships between people. Okay? That's the purpose of it. So that will like indirect, direct experience will be happening, okay? And then there will be fantasy. Fantasy should have more creative and boost vocabulary, and also they do have some self-regulation skills, right? So like a lessons inside. By reading it, they will also learn from the characters. And that folktale, this is about like share a common history or reinforce cultural values or highlight important traditions. And this one has like also lessons inside. And fable, you know what the fable is. They do have morals and life lessons. And historical fiction is fiction, but based on historical events, real historical events. And then the author will add different types of perspectives. about the historical events. That's why these characters or situation, along with creative outlooks from the authors. So they're going to see different angles of some historical events. Okay, this is fiction, but it has historical events background. And then drama is a long time ago, like Shakespeare era. There's no printing skills, right? Printing technology. That's why all of the novels, all of the books was performed on stage. That's why old novels, they're like a drama type. It's kind of script type of novels, right? That's why they have to understand what it is. So for example, they need to understand the characters, roles, and subtext. And then there'll be like a scene description or narrator or like different features of like normal reading, right? And also they will learn like different contexts and cultures from the drama, okay? So to understand classic novels, they need to understand these features. And then myth is about like creation and the early days of word that tell why things are the way they are, right? Why the sea is salty like this, right? Those kind of myth is right there. And also poetry, they do have certain feature. Poetry is very unique reading text, right? They do have voice, pitch, volume, and inflections. So they need to understand that too. And expository text and informational text, they're all about the information or knowledge from the text. They need to know how to gather and organize information from these texts. And then persuasive texts, specific reasons for the opinions and provide an opportunity to research facts related to opinions. So they need to have strong, like supportive ideas for the claim the author has, right? So to give strong supports, they need to use many different types of supports or text features, right? And then there'll be narrative nonfiction. This is all about nonfiction, true story, but they do have narrator in the story. And then argumentative text. This one was about how to make my arguments more valid using all the like evidence or like investigations and things like that, right? So they need to know how to analyze or understand those features from this genre over here, okay? So there are always purpose for learning, all right? So whereas fiction or other fictions are all about the message of the author. And of course, nonfiction, they are always talking about the facts or information, okay? That's what it is. And what kind of teaching tips we should use in genre study? So for the fictions, it's very simple. You just have to understand story elements in it, right? So first off, there'll be character, setting, and events. Of course, depending on the genre, there'll be different features. For example, in realistic fiction, the characters are like people, right? They are not like imaginary character or animals act like real people. They are just people, okay? And fantasy, folktale, fable, they do have some imaginary characters or animals act like real person, okay? That's really important, okay? They wear like clothing, or they can play guitar. That kind of characters will be appear. And then for the setting, for realistic fiction, where and when will be realistic, very similar to where we live now, right? Fantasy, folktale, fable, we don't know where it is and when it is exactly. Just outside or forest or a long time ago, that kind of very vague setting and description there. Historical fiction, it should be they have to talk about past events about the history, right? That's why they can talk about that too. And then they can link to this past event to current events. That's fine, but they should have those kind of setting for sure. And then for the event, like I said, in realistic fiction, it's everyday life story, okay? In everyday life, we do have some struggles with other people, right? And also we do have some problems, but we can come up with some solutions with other people's. So from that, I think we can learn from it. And fantasy, folktale, fable is more like moral and lesson. Not realistic, but we can learn. We have to help those people, or we can be so greedy, right? Or we can be patient. Those kind of lessons will be from those genres. And the historical fiction, we're going to see the real events and the fictional events together. So they will learn historical events and also author's perspectives. And then the plot is going to show the sequential order of the story. So those are the features of, or the tips, or the students have to learn from the fiction stories. What about nonfiction then? Nonfiction types is right there, right? Informational text, expository text, biography, persuasive text, narrative nonfiction, argumentative text. In the nonfiction, there's always be text features right here. Captions, headings, bar graphs, bold print, timeline, charts, photographs, maps, sidebars, etc., etc. So you just have to know how to analyze those text features as well. So for example, how we read this table. From this table, what kind of information we can get? This table, how does this table help us to understand the text? Or there'll be timeline, right? This timeline always used for biography, because this biography always shows the exact the time, events in each time, right? And also bar graphs right here. So we can see the numbers of right? But those kind of text features, they need to know how to analyze. Sometimes you need the maps to understand, okay? So how to teach is right here, right there. And also there are extra ones, right? Drama. What you have to teach is there'll be different formats with other reading. So for example, there'll be scenes and stage directions and dialogues, okay? Because this one's based on the performance on the stage. So they need to understand how this drama is structured. So what you have to teach is right there. And about the myth, I think it's very similar to the folktale, fantasy, or anything else. But this one is also usually, this is kind of old story, right? So sometimes a myth is written in drama type, okay? So you have to mix the knowledge between the drama type, just a normal myth. And then there will be poetry. This is kind of very tricky. In Korean or in Chinese, I think learning poetry is very, very difficult. That's why learning poetry in English is very tricky. But anyway, what you have to focus if you're teaching poetry, it's right there. Stanzas, rhyme scheme, haiku, limericks, okay? So these are very important features you have to understand the poetry, okay? These are what you have to focus. Okay? So I want to show you some examples, okay? This one is Wonders Global Grade 2 level. Of course, in the read stage, actually we went through briefly about genre features, right? It's time to dig deeper. So for example, this is after reading activity in grade 2 level. So they will go deeper like this one. First off, you will have to explain what the features of realistic fiction have, right? So you will have to explain it has characters, settings, and events, and they're all made up, but they can happen in real life. And realistic fiction story has beginning, middle, and end, right? They do have some sequential order. So the second one is about modeling. Your students cannot do right away. So you will have to help them to understand what's it like. So you're modeling first. You are going back to the story and try to talk about what's happening and who are the main characters in the story, what's happening and where it happens, right? And then you can also talk about what's happening at the beginning of the story, right? This is your model. In the beginning of the story, Maria wants to skip practice and go to a friend's house. Her parents remind her why practice is important. This is your modeling. It's not done yet. It's time to go through guided practice. This one is about what's happening at the beginning of the story, right? So they can talk about, Maria wants to go the friend's house instead of practicing the parade. But parents try to explain, you have to go back, right? Parents explain why this practice is very important, right? They have to talk about it. And then you can move on to your turn. Your turn is kind of application. So if your students understand what to do, then you can move on to number 3 right away. Or if they do not understand exactly, then you will have to visit another page and to talk about more events in the different page, and then talk about what is happening and try to understand more there. And then if they understand, you can move on to middle, and ending. So this question itself, it says, how does the author show Maria's feelings about going to practice change in different parts of the story? So they need to go back to the story and try to look for the evidence. Okay. In the side margin, they do have some hints. When they do or answer this question right, then it's easier for them to gather more information in the after reading activity. Okay. So in here, the word it says like proud, or she was excited about being in the parade. So it's like this. She's excited to be in the parade. Those kind of hints will help them to understand how the Maria's feelings changed, right? So based on that, they can come up with those answers, right? This one is your model, right? Maria agrees with her father in the middle of the story and is proud of her hard work by the end, right? This is the end of the story. So if they are too slow, then you will have to give them some language frame, not like jumping into your job to do, right? Because sometimes you need gradual release of responsibility. This is not easy thing to do. In Korea, there are some issues. Students do not want to think, right? Then you will have to chop up the responsibility for your students. That's why for the slow students, you can give like blank or language frame for them. Like keywords will be like agrees with something like that. And also like proud of something like that. You can just give like 1 or 2 blanks for the beginner. And then when the level goes up, you can give more blanks, giving them more challenges. Okay, that's how you teach. So have them think is very important. That's why you will have to have your own ways to scaffold your students. Scaffolding means you will have to build the steps to reach the learning objectives of each lesson. So depending on your level, you have to do your own weapons to use in your class, okay? So I think you now know how we can revisit, how we can learn more information with different tasks, right? Then this one is like they will understand like more features of the text, okay? That's the main purpose of it. Okay, any questions about genre study? Thank you, Emily, for your feedback. While you're leaving your questions, I'm going to, I can wait because we have break time after this. We're gonna have like 10-minute break. So you can take time. If you have any questions, we can go through. So some schools in Korea, they might ask me, do I have to teach drama study? My answer is, it depends on your student's level. You can skip it if you want, for real. Yeah, because I think the most important part in reading is the third part of today's lesson. Okay, third part is all about comprehension strategy and skills, right? These 2 skills are most important, I would say. Genre features is good to know. Right? If you have enough time, you can always deeper into it. But sometimes it's too tricky or too overwhelming for some of your students, then you can move on. Okay, because it's not easy for them to do. So you don't have to go through like every single points there, but you can simplify the lesson. Okay, for example, you don't have to do like after reading activity. Only just talking about the instruction in the side margin. That might be enough for them. So try to understand the features of it. So you can talk about the purpose. That's it. They don't have to find anything. Okay. Or for the fiction story, they need to look for character, setting, and events. That's it. That kind of simplification can be happening. In Korea, no schools use exactly same way with the US. Okay, that's impossible because of our students level, and also we have limited of resources in Korea. Right? So it's always wise to adapt So how to teach in your own necessity. Okay, that's very important. Okay, I don't think you have questions. So can we have like 10-minute breaks? So can we meet like in 10 minutes, like 3:30? Okay, then see you
Okay.
soon.
Thanks, Rena. Thanks all.
Sorry, I think it should be 2:30 because we have a time difference.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah,
Right, 2:30.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, not 3:30.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. OK，
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
各位老师，再见，谢谢。谢谢。
Rina, you're still muted.
Sorry. Okay. Hear me, right? Okay. So everyone is here. I think I can see the names in the participants. So I want to start with the part 3. I don't see any questions about the previous session. I think this one is very important to understand. So actually, these are kind of core or like main reasons to use US ELA program. So of course, some of the ELT, they do kind of imitate or follow some of the instruction from here, but they cannot do like deeper level like US ELA program. So first one, we are talking about comprehensive skills, and then we can talk about strategies, and then we can briefly talk about integrate stage as well. Like I said, language should be stayed. Shouldn't be stayed like a one area, right? It should be like go everywhere, right? To use like many different types of thoughts. So it's also reread stage, and right here, comprehensive strategy to critical analysis of the story. Comprehension skills. What is comprehension skills? This one is kind of reflective tasks. Students will complete to understand their understanding level. So, for example, they will have to use their cognitive process, and then using those, they will have to understand how this text is structured, right? What kind of features in it? How this author structured this type of reading. So for example, like this one, narrative elements, main idea, key details, and other structure like cause and effect or problem solutions, those kind of very author's like intention will be presented using those skills. So we need to figure out what kind of skills that the author actually used in the author's writing. So purpose of teaching comprehensive skills right there. Cognitive automaticity, right? So it's just when they know like what to find from certain texts, then it's going to be easier for them to gather or organize their own thoughts about the text. For example, when they have or when they know how to find text, main ideas and key details, and they can do it right away. Because if they are skilled about that, it's not going to be a big problem. But without it, it's going to be very difficult to organize the thoughts. Why do we have to do this? Because human brain has a limited space, right? So we need to actually organize thoughts in a very systematic way. So using these comprehensive skills, we can actually categorize different skills in our mind. And then whenever we had new tasks, and we try to pull up and try to use this to complete this type of tasks, right? So, for example, like this one, author theme or bias, they need to figure out, right? So, what is real author's perspectives, or what is author theme exactly? So those kind of step-by-step analysis is happening with the comprehensive skills, right? So using those, they will have many different types of forms of information. Okay, that's very important. Second, purpose is like this mental model. So these thinking skills will identify like narrative elements or cause and effect. So they will have some blueprint for the brain. So like instead of like the random sentences, they will automatically organize information in their mental map. So every student, I don't think they can do it like without learning. Okay, so teachers have to give them the visual graph organization first, and then after it became automaticity, then they will do it without any help. Okay, it's going to be very simple. In Korea, we do have some college entrance exam. It's called KSET. In KSET, English part, they do have very long text always. It's really long. Like if we have very limited time, but they are very long text. If they have this kind of comprehensive skills in their mind, then they will actually draw blueprint right away, and they organize the thoughts with effective way, right? That's very important skills, right? So with this one, using the mental map, they can actually recall and retention quite easily using this one, okay? If the information is like, what is it? Like be there, scattered way. And it's really hard to look for the link or look for the exact information for my task. But if they are organized with some certain categories, you can actually choose the category and then just pull up, right? That's it. So that kind of mental model will be happening with the comprehension skills. Number 3 will be independency and agency. Of course, when they do some comprehension skills or use the comprehension skills, they will actually handle the text in a proactive way, right? They're gonna translate their teachers do not have to do anything because they do know what to do it, right? Teacher's job is not like give all the details instruction. Of course, at the beginning we have to do that, but when the level goes up, like grade 3 level, they need to know how to do it, like maybe in a very vague way, but still they need to know briefly about how to organize or how to analyze those texts. Okay, so to do that, I think it's gradual release of responsibility is very important. So we need to help them to be independent at the end. So doing so, you will have to give them scaffolding lessons to reach some learning objectives. So for example, first off, they can come up with some graph organizer. This can be blank or graph organizer to analyze the text. But of course, some students cannot do it right away. So what you have to do is you can give them some language frame in the graph organizer. That kind of gradual release of responsibility will help them to be independent learners or readers. Okay, and then I think in 21st century skills, I think this is like an AI era, right? There'll be like tons of information out there, right? So they need to know how to, how to define this one is important information or not. Those kind of training should be kind of mandatory for the students nowadays, right? They need to have some monitoring skills, right? They cannot accept whatever AI says, right? They need to do some critical thinking and try to find this is verifying information or not, right? Those kind of activities will be happening with comprehension skills. That's why they can become independent learner at the end. And how to teach comprehension skills is very simple, actually. First off, you will have to introduce and explain the concept because students in Korea or Taiwan, they've never learned how to analyze text like this. Maybe they do have like similar ideas, but not exactly. That's why students have to learn what it is, but not just in students in Korea or Taiwan. Students in US, they also have to have those explanation part as well, because this is an academic setting. I don't think they have to talk about this one in their everyday life or with their parents, right? So in any learners, they need to know what it is from the teachers first. And then it's time to guided practice. Teachers will give the students a model. And then under teacher's guidance, they will have to do some practice. Okay, you will have to give some practice. Finally, this one is very important. They need to apply what they have learned from you. Okay, then it will be great application for the students, but for the teachers, it will be great assessment, formative assessment. If they understand what it is, then they will apply correctly. But if they do not know what to do, that means they need more help to understand these comprehension skills, right? So this format is very important. I want to show you an example. This is grade 1 level. Grade 1, unit 1, week 1, which means they just completed grade K level. That means they do not have any ideas about any comprehension skills, right? So usually grade 1, unit 1, week 1, or unit 1 or week 2, they're talking about key details gathering. Okay, key details are the most important thing they need to recognize. So first off, you will explain, the teacher explains what it is, right? Key details are the most important details in a story. Of course, words and pictures in a story give you the key details. These are the text evidence, okay? And then you can go back to the story, like page 15. And also, I forgot something. Key details should be related to the main ideas as well, right? So you can go back and try to talk about page 11 and page 15. Jack can paint. This is your model. This is exactly key details, and also it is related to the main topic. Main idea is about what Jack can do at school, okay? So this story should be about what Jack can do at school. So Jack can paint is very related to the main topic. And then it's time to move on. This is guided practice, like this one. So go back and you can talk about Jack can paint is a key detail. What about Max can draw? Is it a key detail? What do you think? You can leave your thoughts in the chat box if you want, but the answer will be no, right? Why not? Because Max can draw is a good detail, but nothing to do with the main idea, right? So the key detail should be talking about the most important details of the story. And also it is closely related to the main idea. Okay, that's why Jack can paint is a key detail, Max can draw is not. Okay, then you can move on to graph organizer. This is guided practice. Under teacher's guidance, you will have to go through. So first off, this one is already done, right? This is teacher's model. What about second column, second blank? Users can do it right away if they understand what it is, or you can give them hints. Let's go back to page something and try to fill it up. And it can be Jack. Jack cannot reach, right? And then final one, they should do by themselves, okay? Of course, they are struggling sometimes. Then you can just give them more guidance. And then it's not it. You can move on to this part. This one is about application, right? As you can see here, they'll have to talk about one more key details in the story, not in the graph organizer or not in the model. They'll have to find their own work. But in here, it's collaborative work, which means you can do this one as a group work or pair work, okay? So have them go back to the story and try to find more key details, right? It has to be something to do with Jack, right? And then it's about all, they need to figure out, not from the graph organizer, and new key details. And then finally, they'll have to talk about the oral summary. Retelling is all about oral summary. They can talk about these details we already gathered and then talk about it without, they can actually look at the book. Of course, it's not a memorization game, but in the low level, they can just read aloud. That's fine. They can talk about key details only, which means gathering all the key details will become summarized, right? And then for the upper level, I think in the retelling, you can actually help them to do some paraphrasing. So they're going to use their own words and then talk about key details of it. So it means it will retain their learning. Okay, that's why try to do some oral summary. Of course, when the level goes up, like grade 2 level, there's no more retelling activity, but written activity, written summary activity. Okay, so there'll be different responsibilities depending on the levels. Okay, this is how you teach. Very simple. This is very similar to grade 2, grade 3, or grade 4. They're all same. You have to explain something, and you have to give them a model, and then guide them to practice together, and then move on to application. Of course, sometimes if the task is too difficult, this number 4, right? Talk about one more key detail. This can be guided practice as well, because Wonders Global has more fresh read in the website. We do have like extra reads there, okay? So please use them. Of course, in grade 2 level, from grade 2 level, there are more extra reads to use as a fresh read. Real application should be using the fresh read, okay? The same text all the time, they might think, I understand everything, but that's not true. So please give them more challenge using fresh read, okay? Do you have any questions about how to teach comprehension skills? And what the comprehension skills is? to move on to comprehension strategies. This is more complex skills, actually. This one, skills is kind of very straightforward, right? After they read, there should be some graph organizer and try to analyze text features or text structure. So based on that, they can do some summary with that, right? So they can have a compact information in their mind. Comprehension strategy is a little bit different. So this one is like a deliberate, goal-directed, and meta-cognitive mental actions. This is very different, right? Meta-cognitive means they need to know what they do not know. Right? They need to think about the thinking, right? Those type of high-order thinking process. That's why this strategy lesson, I don't think it happens from grade 1 level. Grade 1 level still build up all the basic skills. Comprehension skills is one of them, but strategy is more this higher level of thinking skills, okay? And whenever there is any barrier to understanding, they can use these strategies, which means this strategy actually make our students independent, okay? And also strategies is kind of very flexible and adaptable. Based on what they have, they need to know how we can use them in different tasks, okay? So for example, like a reader might use one strategy for a complex scientific article and an entire different one for a piece of contemporary fiction. So those kind of two different types of texts, and they'll have to use their own strategies to solve the problem, okay? So if they know the problem and they can come up with the solutions easily, okay? That's always a tip. Purpose of teaching comprehension skills, strategies. So metacognition, thinking about thinking, right? Overarching purpose of strategies is to develop metacognition. So try to help them to understand why or when you are confused about the text, okay? It can be vocabulary, it can be grammar, it can be background knowledge. If they spot the problem, and it's so much more easier for them to look for the solutions, right? So like here, like instead of mindlessly glazing over a page, a strategic reader has an internal alarm that goes off if there's these difficulties, right? Then strategy will fix some actions for that. So it's gonna turn off the alarm, right? Those kind of happening is in their student mental, okay? That's what we have to do. Number 2 is cognitive load. So when the text is too complex, I think the brain is overwhelmed. So strategists act as management tools that try to break down some complexity. So if they know what's the problem of maybe their weaknesses or their challenges, they can actually do some action like this: chunking, summarizing, visualizing. If they do not know what to do, or no one teaches this, I don't think they can do it like automatically, right? This one is more like a conscious level, the level of activity. So here is chunking, breaking a long text into smaller pieces. Maybe too long sentence will make me so confused, right? Or I can do some summarize, like not full paragraph, but I can do with one of the paragraphs. And then try to understand, oh, this is the main message from this text. Those kind of things will be happening, right? And then visualization. So they're gonna look for descriptive details from the text, right? And then try to understand and try to draw some pictures in their mind about some abstract words. Sometimes it's really difficult for them to understand abstract words. That's why they need to know how to develop, how to draw some pictures in their mind, okay? So this will help. The comprehension strategies will help them to do that. Number 3 is about activating their background knowledge. So actually, like I said, there will be some problems of background knowledge. There will be vocabulary, there will be grammar. Maybe vocabulary and grammar will be fixed. You can give them simple instruction there, but building like background knowledge or activating prior knowledge, it will be a little bit difficult because we don't know. Of course, before we jump in, we have some background knowledge development parts at the beginning, but sometimes you don't have enough time to cover that part. Then you have to jump in right away. Then you have to build all the background knowledge or prior knowledge of your students, right? So if they do not have enough cultural background, then you'll need to give more cultural background information. But it doesn't have to be like US based. Sometimes when the level goes like a grade 4 level, they do have sometimes they do have US centric contents, right? But it doesn't matter. We are reading just nonfiction story, but topic is about US, like boarding system or government, that's fine. Because we do have similar system in Korea or Taiwan, right? So we can compare and contrast those two different systems. This is kind of building up their background knowledge, okay? So first off, you will need to help them to understand what's the problem of understanding this text, and then try to figure out what kind of solutions will be better fixed for the problems. So this is what strategists do. The first, they said they prime the brain to look for connections. They create hooks in the long-term memory where the new information from the text can hang. Without these strategies, new information often slides off the brain. And of course, if you make the contextualization, this knowledge will retain more, right? Not only they have better understanding, but the knowledge will stay more, right? That's the main purpose of it. Finally, this is also help them to be independent, right? Like comprehension skills, if they know how to analyze and summarize texts, it'll be much fun, right? But if they know how to solve the problem when they read their own texts, it'll be much more helpful, right? It's very proactive, a way of learning, right? The teacher's role is just think aloud, right? Showing students the invisible mental moves a good reader makes. This is for like first step, like a gradual release of responsibility to make them independent. And then student role will be eventually internalize those moves so they no longer need a teacher to explain the text. This is a result. This is where we're going, okay? I don't think ELT materials can do that because their text itself is not that complex. And I don't think they can actually bring up those kind of strategy instructions there. So using authentic reading, you can do it, okay? So have them internalize what you are teaching it right now, okay? How to teach comprehension strategies. Like I said, it's very similar flow, but this one has more steps, okay? So first off, you need to explain, focused instruction. I do means teacher's introduction about the strategies, okay? And then give them some modeling, like using some graph organizer, and then you can give them some mental problem solution process, okay? And then there'll be guided instructions. So we do, students and teacher will do it together. So they're gonna work on the same task together, and teacher will give them some feedback, okay? And then they will know what's the important thing to focus on. Not like, you know, if there's any errors, then you have to help them, right? Those kind of help you should give, okay? And then there'll be collaborative learning. This is kind of application type, but before the application, you can pair up your students, okay? So the peer will foster other peers, okay? So before they actually apply or do some application, like a presentation or talk about what they're thinking, but if they talk about their own thoughts with the partner, and they'll become more confident, okay? And when you observe the US classroom, they do have a lot of collaborative learning. So students will learn each other, okay? That's the main thing. Finally, it's independent practice. You do session, right? Students will apply the skills and strategies on their own, and they're gonna use like a self-selected texts at their independent reading level. It's our goal actually, right? Of course, it takes time. If you use like US ELA text for about 4 years, like in the right way, I think they can do that, right? Of course, from like grade 3 level, they can do it part of it, not like full, but they do know what to do it, okay? But in grade 4 level, if you give any text, they should be able to talk about it based on this, okay? What's the problem, what is the solution, and how we can analyze it, those kind of things, okay? I want to talk about little details about the conference strategies. So there are 5 different ones, like visualization, ask and answer questions, reread, make, confirm, and revise prediction, and summarize. So for visualize, like I said, this one is about using the descriptive details, which means they know what it is, and then they can formulate the pictures in their mind. And then this one is very important skill, asking and answering questions. It's not just get the questions. They'll have to come up with their own questions, which means they need to spot the problems they are having. And then they using that curiosity, they need to build or develop their own question, try to solve the problem using the questions, okay? This is very critical thinking level of thinking, okay? And then reread. Reread is kind of, whenever there is any difficult part, they need to revisit and try to pay attention. What's wrong with this passage, or what's wrong with this paragraph, and try to analyze. This is type of like a metacognition process, right? So they need to figure out what seems to be the problem, okay? Then they'll make, confirm, and revise predictions. If they make their own predictions, they need to come up with some text evidence, right? You can actually use your guessing or assumption to make some predictions. They need to use all exact text evidence to do so, right? So which means they need to know how to find it. And then they need to always check if my assumption or prediction was right or wrong by using another text evidence in the next paragraph. And then if it's wrong, then they need to revise their own prediction. This is kind of real learning process, okay? Making predictions, it might be simpler than other tasks, but confirm and revision, it's more tricky. So you just have to do it. Of course, for the lower level, like grade 2 level, I think making prediction is enough. But maybe later unit, like a unit 4 of grade 2 level, they should be able to do some confirmation and revision of their prediction. Finally, summarize. Summarize a little bit different from what we did in the comprehensive skills, right? We don't have to do some like paragraph by paragraph skills, right? After they read the whole story, they need to actually do like organize the text structure using the summarize tool, like key details gathering, right? But this one is like a paragraph by paragraph activity. So if some part is not easier to understand, then they will have to revisit and try to restating the essence of the text. When they do so, it is good that if they can use their own words, which means paraphrasing, it's more helpful, okay? And then they're gonna understand the gist of it. That's why they're not gonna miss any important details of it doing the summarize, okay? So these strategies will help them to understand how to access to complex text, okay? So this one is a visualization example. So first off, you will have to explain what it is, right? What is visualization? Visualization means you will use the author's words to form pictures in your mind about the story, right? And it's time to go back to the story and then try to look for descriptive details first, okay? For example, like here, page 9, there'll be descriptive details in paragraph 1, right? So maybe it is bright, hot kitchen. This one is about the setting description. So they can actually picture what's it like about their kitchen, okay? And then you can move on to page 11, right? This page 11 is about costumes, right? So your modeling will be, they even made their own bright, colorful costumes. And then you can have them move on to page 12 without teacher's help and try to find more descriptive details right here, right? You know, while they're going through your practice or your guidance, I think they will understand, oh, maybe visualization means I will need to look for all the descriptive details first and then try to draw pictures in my mind. And I have clear ideas about it. Because when the level goes up, there are a lot of abstract expressions, right? Of course, for the lower level, vocab words are very straightforward. But for the upper level, there are always abstract concepts. That's why it's really hard for them to understand. So using the descriptive details, they need to know how to build their own strategies. Right? This type of thing. So children in Maria's group wearing their sparkly costumes and they dance to the beats, right? This type of answer will be happening. So this format, they should have in their own mind when the level goes up, right? This will be repeated. Whenever they see visualization, they need to know what to do, okay? Then if you think they do not get it like quite completely, then you can have them move on to page 13 and ask them to look for more descriptive details. Like, for example, like a woman with a camera and she scurries by Maria. Scurry is kind of very good words, keywords, and at the same time, people or students can picture how this woman moves, right? And then she puts her camera to her eye, and then they'll be like from ear to ear, right? Smiles from ear to ear. This is also very good descriptive details, right? And also there'll be other type of you will have to help them to look for all the descriptive details. Summary, you will have to help them to find all the important details there. And you can have them revisit and try to talk about what's wrong with this, what's the most difficult thing in this paragraph, and try to figure. There'll be different kinds of strategies. Even though they are using visualization, they are still struggling. Then what you have to do is use different types of strategies there, okay? Okay, before I move on, do you have any questions about the strategies and skills? So it's not just a finding of details, right? It's more like what the important information of the story. This is all about it. And then they try to gather and collect the information with a certain purpose. Okay, it's not just a random gathering. It's more like a purposeful activity. So it will have them think and have them, have them use their brain to gather the information strategic way. Okay, so that's why this is very important activity. Okay, maybe if you don't have any question, I want to talk about integrate lesson. So I didn't talk about the lesson pace. So for example, I think if you're using Wonders Global, for the read stage, I think it takes about like one class, like 40 minutes, 1 hour. Because in the student book, they do have instruction in the side margin. So what you have to do is go through in the side margin. For the reread, I think the general study takes about 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, if you're teaching them, I think that's enough, right? But for comprehension skills, I think you have to spend 1 hour at least. I mean, 1 hour means one class. Okay, so why is that? Is they need to know how this reading text or story are structured, and they need to know how to analyze. They need to know all the important concept or structure names of comprehension skills, like key details or like cause and effect, problem solutions, theme, and like point of view, author's purpose, etc., right? Those are important key details. The comprehension skills they need to know. So in Korea, we spend 1 hour, one class for the comprehension skills. And comprehension strategy, it depends. I don't think every class should teach comprehension comprehension strategies, because this is only for the higher proficiency levels of English, not low level. Okay, high means like intermediate level, right? If they are struggling with language, then I don't think they will get, or I don't think they can do some thinking in English, right? So strategies can be differentiated in depending on your student's level. So comprehension skills is kind of mandatory for every level except grade K. But from grade 1, comprehension skills is kind of mandatory. But comprehension strategies, it starts from grade 2 level. Even they're in grade 2 level, their language level is quite not there yet. Then you cannot teach comprehension strategies. But if you think they are higher than intermediate level, then you can, of course, teach these strategies. Okay? And for the make connections, it also depends, actually. There are 3 different parts. One is make connections, and second is research and inquiry, third is writing. So make connections, integrate is like this. So far, we gathered information based on our own intention. First off, in read stage, we gather all the important information, basic information, right? And in reread, we gathered all the deeper level of information, like genre features, structure, and then like other strategies to gather more information or more understanding, okay? That's what we do. Gathering information or knowledge is not enough. It always has to be integrate the knowledge and information we have learned from the class, and they should be able to use them in different settings. Okay, that's the main thing. So that is why we are doing it. So in Korea, I just asked them to spend this make connection lesson in 20 minutes. How? From grade unit 1 to 4, grade 1 unit 4, there is always make connection questions at the end of the story. So you will have to encourage your students to go through these make connection questions. Then when you get to the after reading activity in the make connections, you can actually gather the answer from the make connection questions at the end of the story. Okay, that's it. That's why it takes about 20 minutes. But without it, it takes more than that, because it's all about thinking skills, right? They have to think about their task. But in Korea, it's really hard for teachers to help, the students to think about the task. So that's why I just give this as the optional. Okay, if you're focusing on reading, I don't think make connection is kind of mandatory. But if you have a little bit more time, then it will be great activities to do, retain their knowledge from the reading text. Okay, so what is make connections is right here. It's very active and constructive process, and then they're gonna have like some strong connections between the pre-existing knowledge and the task on the page. So which means if they have tasks about the make connections, then they'll have to use all the pre-existing knowledge, which means knowledge from shared read and paired read, something like that, right? And then they're going to use those information and knowledge and use them in the task right in front of them. Okay, that's the make connections. And this will help them to retain the information and knowledge and core skills. And also, they will actively engage with the text. This is how we do some text connections. So here it's like this: text to self, text to text, text to word. So text to self, they're gonna make connections between the text and their own experience. So this is kind of apply to lower level or young age of students. Okay, so like this, relating character's homesickness in the Wizard of Oz to one's own experience on a vacation, something like that. And then targeted outcome will be increased empathy and personal engagement with the character motivation, right? They will understand better with it, okay? And also when they are talking with their own experience, they will use the expressions from the main text. It should be, okay? So they're gonna use the proper knowledge to the task, okay? And then text is quite tricky. So relates the text to other books or movies or media or artist works. Okay, so this is some kind of text to text activity. So they're gonna, after they read this book, and they're gonna compare these two stories together, these two tales together, like compare and contrast. This is kind of base of the critical thinking development, right? What are the similarities and differences? This is also very tricky, not easy, but whenever they do so, they need to understand the core information of each text. Then they can do some compare and contrast. And then this one will develop or improve understanding of genre, theme, and narrative structure, because they apply already, right? Apply to a new text. That's why it is very important to do that. So I think maybe the text is too easy, or not easy. I mean, the lower level, like grade 1, I think it's better for them to connect text to photos, right? It's always easier, like, or text to illustrations, that's it. But when the level goes up, I think text should be happening, right? So for example, in Wonders Global, there are 2 different readers per lesson. So one is shared read. We all develop all the core skills with that. And paired read is kind of extended reading. So whenever they compare these two, they need to understand the key information of these 2 reading. Okay, so text to text, it's really easier for them to compare, but what they have to find is not easy. So you will have to give them a lot of modeling and examples and guided practice together. Okay, and text word is a little bit different. It's more like a word type, right? It's not like book or text or videos or something like that. It's just more like a real world events, history, social issues, and systematic the concepts. So which means this knowledge is not just stay in the classroom. This will be connecting to the real world. So it's going to be a real, alive knowledge they will get. So for example, connecting a story set in 1990s Oklahoma to historical knowledge of the Dust Bowl and Great Depression. So maybe they read about like Oklahoma, the history there, and then in Oklahoma there is a Dust Bowl, right? People are over farming. That's why there is no plants or no crops anymore. That's why there are huge dust came out. So that's why there are Dust Bowl. That's why it caused Great Depression as well. You know, the Interstellar, they're actually their setting is kind of, they're using the reference from the Dust Bowl, right? It was very scary, right? You cannot go outside because it's always like sand wind, right? Dusty wind. So that's why it leads to Great Depression as well. So those kind of connections will be happening, which means they'll have to understand the text itself, and then they need to understand the information from the word, right? So they're gonna compare concepts together. So it also helps them to critical thinking development and contextual understanding of the author's message, right? So, you know, this is very tricky and very high level of thinking, okay? So it depends on student's level. If it's too difficult for them, you don't have to do it, okay? Just go through in the side margin, that's it, okay? But if you have enough time, you can do it. Maybe not every lesson, but like one in a unit, because one unit, they do have like 3 different lessons, for example, in Wonders Global. So you don't have to do it every time, but you can do it like once in like 3 months or something, okay? It will be great helpful. Of course, for lower level, they're usually text to self, right? But the level goes up, it became like text to text and text to word. This is make connections. This is for grade 1 level. Like I said, they have to compare the text they read and also the illustration. This is kind of text to text, right? They need to understand the gist of this story. The nice mitten. And then this story, you know, everyone knows the story. Little Red Riding Hood, right? They're gonna compare what's the similarities and contrast with the differences. So with that, I think they know what to gather from the text, and then how to interpret this illustration. And then this one is for grade 2 level. As you can see here, more complex, right? They will have to compare all the selections they have read, like shared read and paired read. Now there is a painting, right? This is from like William Tonner. And then they'll have to talk about what are the, like they need to talk about like the painting and then what they have read. So the selections and the painting help me understand how things like something like that. So maybe the shared read and paired read are talking about how the earth changes. So you know what kind of cause is happening there. So they're gonna talk about the main topic or important information from the shared read, and also same thing happening to paired read. And then they can also talk about this picture, what's happening, what's this painting, right? This is a shooting star, right? How does it change, right? To you know our sky, right? So try to talk about it, and they can talk about some similarities and differences between the changes, okay? Like wildfires or erosions or like this type of shooting star, what's going to happen, right? This is more complex. So that's why I just told you, if it's simple, like grade 1 level, you can do it, right? But grade 2 level, if you do not have enough time, right? Your lesson pacing is very fast, then I don't think you have time for that. So then you can just go through, make connection questions at the end of the story. Okay, there'll be that kind of support for that. Okay. And then research and inquiry. This one is also about integration. So now it's time to expand their learning scope. Okay. Now we talked about certain topic. It's time to expand our knowledge level using some research and inquiry skills. Of course, research and inquiry is very simple. So inquiry means the process of finding answers to questions. And then they're going to have some solutions and then resolve the doubts and argument knowledge, I'm sorry. And then there'll be research. This one is about systematic approach and scientific methodology to find the answer, right? They need to look for more resources or reference. This is research. So research and inquiry, they're going to use the same topic, the main book says, and then they're going to expand their own knowledge further, okay? And then research and inquiry will help them to know how to collect and analyze and synthesize information. Or sometimes they can evaluate. This is valid or not, right? Those kind of thinking processes will be happening. So this one is also related to critical thinking development and higher order thinking process. Then this should be collaborative. So it's not like independent work. It should be always collaborative work. So they're going to extend their own knowledge and then practice written and oral presentations and apply research skills. So which means you should team up your students, and everyone has different roles. Some students will talk about like finding or identifying the sources. Some students will do some recording. Some students make some presentations. Some students will do the PPT, and some students will do some presentation, right? So there'll be different roles in the research and inquiry. This is kind of like gathering collective intelligence. How do you teach? It's like this. First off, you need to know how to set research goal and identify sources and find and record information and organize and synthesize and present. So in set research goal, you will have to generate the questions. What kind of question we are digging more, right? And then they can plan a research plan. Also, you can assign roles to group members. Secondly, if the topic is set, then they need to identify sources. Are we going to use texts or smartphone or books or digital media or interview with experts? They need to identify sources first. And then it's time to move, find and record information. They need to look for the information and then record it, right? Take notes sometimes, and then of course they can do their own ways to do that. And when they do so, they need to know how to citate the resources. Okay, this is very important. Of course, this one is for the upper level, but for lower level, you can do with simplified way. And then it's time to organize the information, right? We have full of information about our topic or questions, but now it's time to organize what it's worth it to use, right? So identify the most useful information by annotating or highlighting their notes, right? And then using the graph organizer, they're gonna sort or classify the information. And then if there is any missing information, they need to look for more, right? This is what they do in organization phase. Finally, we do have like proper knowledge or information, and they need to put it in the presentation tools like PPT or big paper, drawings, whatever is necessary for them. They can just choose. So they can also talk about, they're gonna embed audio or visual, or we're gonna do some rehearsal, or do we have all the key details or key ideas about our topic? Those kind of process should be taken, okay? So this is how you teach. So I wanna show you for the lower level students of research and inquiry, like this one. So this one is for grade 1 level. We are going to research a food item. Actually, the topic for this level is about food, right? From farm to table. So they're gonna set the topic. So pick and write down type of food you want to learn more about. Choose the food items from the group. Use the photos and words to help you. So they're gonna grouping the foods, right? So this is kind of setting up goals, and this one is about planning, right? So maybe step 1, 2. I think this is about the setting up goal, right? They need to come up with their own topic and come up with this question, right? This example question is kind of model. So how do apples get to my table? So they'll have to know the process of the apples, like how do apples coming to our table, right? And then they're gonna actually find information in books or research online. And sometimes in Korea, students are not allowed to use computer or smartphone, right? So if it's the case, you have to prepare all the reference, okay? Of course, write reference, not like too difficult to read. Of course, that's not gonna work. So you will have to prepare your own reference for your students, and they will look for all the information from your reference, okay? Then they will have to organize their information, draw and label what you learned about your food in the correct order. So they're gonna order like, maybe farmer, we pick the apples and they're gonna put it in the box, and the box will move to like wholesalers, and then they're gonna like move to like marts, and then the customer will buy it, right? Something like that. And then they're gonna present in front of other classmates. Okay, this is how you do that. For the lower level, of course, for the upper level, like grade 2 level, they need to do exactly what it says. But like I said, this one is not mandatory. If you have enough time, you can go through every single lesson. But if you do not have enough time, then you can do once in a month or once in a semester. That's fine as well. But I just recommend you to cover one of the lessons from this research inquiry or make connections. It may help them to integrate or synthesize their knowledge to use in new settings. Okay, that's why I strongly recommend. So for research and inquiry for grade 1 level, it takes about 20 minutes if you're not going through like a presentation. But if you have them presentation, then it takes about 40 minutes. That's why it takes some time, right? And also they need to organize their the sources or information. So it takes time. So if you're teaching it like simplified way, that's fine. Without presentation, that's totally fine. Or you can just do it like once in a semester or once in 6 months, whichever works for you, then just do it. Finally, writing. Writing is 2 different parts. Like I said, for language development, I think you should help them to how to speak after they're listening something. And then you should also talk about how to write exactly what we have learned from the reading test, reading skills, right? They're gonna apply all those reading skills to the writing. That's the main concept in USA Lit program. There are teaching history of writing. About 50 or 40 years ago, there are always product writing. And then in the middle, there'll be process writing. And then nowadays, we call it process genre writing, okay? Excuse me. What is product writing then? This one is the product itself is very important. And then there'll be model text, but they can imitate. So it's what student thinks is not important. Organization, like this writing has strong organization, is more important. And then it should be controlled by teachers. So it's a top-down approach. So teachers give model text, and the teachers give all the scaffolding lessons. Of course, scaffolding lessons should be everywhere, but give them more controlled practice, right? They don't have to use their own brain, right? What they have to do is they are learning about organization and how the writing looks like. Okay, that's about it. And then it's all in individual work. But the time goes on. When they go to like university or college or even getting a job, product writing is not enough. They need to think their own process by themselves. That's why they are come up with this process writing. So they don't have to organize their own thoughts. That's planning. So they can brainstorm, and then they're gonna pick the topic, and then they're gonna organize their own thoughts. And then they can add some flesh and blood in draft session. They're gonna revise and edit and publish. So their thinking is more important. And usually the model text is used as a the comparison, like a reference, right? We are actually referring to the expert model, but not doing it exactly the same, right? So they're gonna know what skills to apply by looking at the reference, but not exactly copy it, right? And then also skills and strategies is more important, and their student thinking is more important. That's why each individual student, they do have their own ways of practice, okay? So it's like a bottom-up approach. And then teachers can encourage a collaborative work. For example, when they plan, like you can plan or brainstorm their writing as a class because it will be a great model for other students as well, right? Or when you do some draft model activity, actually you can do it as a full class, and they will know how to add more details to the outline, right? Those kind of activities will be necessary. So students' idea is more important. Sometimes in Korea, there are some books, they're only translation from Korean to English, but they say it is writing. No, that's not a writing, right? That's just grammar. Writing should add the students' logical knowledge there or logical thinking in there, right? Even it doesn't matter how long, how complex it is. Just one sentence, students have their own thoughts. Okay, that's a real writing. That's why process writing is right there. Nowadays, they're kind of keeping the way of process writing, but we are adding more connections between reading and writing. So, like I said, to learn language, they need to speak, read, and write, and listen, right? So there are explicit and strong connections between reading and writing a student book. And then they emphasize on why and how behind the text structure, which means they are using all the reading skills to write this writing, okay? So, for example, when they read realistic fictions about family celebration, and they learn all the author's craft and then structures and the strategies and genre features, then they should be able to write exactly a similar topic, same genre, and all the skills in their own writing. It will be great and genuine application for your students, right? That's why writing this way is very important. So for the product writing, I think it's not like disappeared, right? This is kind of process, but we still do some product writing for the lower level because lower level students, I don't think they can do or they can come up with their own ideas about their writing, right? So that's why they need some controlled activity. They need to see some model activity or model text and try to think of, oh, this is why I have to do that, like something like that. They need to understand like basic skills. That's all about product writing. And then the level goes up, it will be changed. So for the lower level, the important thing is right there. This writing traits. They need to understand the writing traits. So you'll have to teach ideas, that how we can organize our own ideas more effectively, right? Do I have to focus on only one event per paragraph? And where do I use clues? Clues should be from like reference, right? The information we have found. For example, in Wonders Global, the clues should come from the shared read or paired read, right? And also there'll be like main ideas, how we organize supporting ideas, something like that. Okay, so these are ideas. And their organization, this is like logical and effective structure of writing. So maybe you can use like a order of events, like a sequential order. And also you can actually do some transitional words like however, like nonetheless, or on the other hand. Those kind of words will make the organization more effectively. Okay, that's why they need to know the organization. Third one is word choice. To make the writing more interesting or more clear, more understandable, I think they have to carefully choose the words, right? For like fiction stories, I think they need to choose some sensory details or like specific words or something like that, right? For the facts-based writing, I think they need to do some like facts-based vocabulary, right? So those kind of word choices, it's really important. And then sentence fluency. When you write with just one type of sentence, it's gonna be so boring, right? So you just know how to use different rhythm and flow using different length of sentences, right? For example, you can use a simple sentence and also complex or compound, right? And then they will have some rhythm on it, right? It should be natural and graceful. And also they do have different types of sentences. For example, they can use exclamation, demand, or statement or questions, right? They do have different types of sentences as well. So they will kind of play around different types of sentence and different types of lengths. Voice, how we can make our own writing unique, right? So for example, you can use like an author's purpose, like point of view, right? Authors gonna use some special characteristics of their own writing, right? Students know, I think students have to understand or learn from it, okay? Of course, right now, what they just do is very simple way of writing, right? But when the level goes up, they need to put their logical idea with a unique perspectives. It will get more points, right? Even in assessment, right? So they need to know how to put their own voice in their own writing. And finally, how we can make the writing clearer. The conventions, right? Grammar, punctuation, spelling, capitalization, mechanics, paragraph indentation, even, right? So these 6 are very important for them to understand. And then for the process writing, like product writing, I think it doesn't have to have some process, right? But in the process writing, I think they should go through some like well, right? First off, you will have to analyze the expert models. In Wonders Global or like into reading, like maybe Wonders Global, it's about shared read or paired read. They have read in the student book, right? So they're gonna analyze it one more time because we already did all the analysis is happening because we went through a closed reading routine. That means student visited a text at least 3 times, right? Maybe more than 3 times, right? So this time is kind of review. If it is necessary, you can go back and try to gather review or go through what we have talked about so far and try to understand the features of Excel model. And then based on this Excel model, they need to brainstorm and choose a topic and discuss the purpose and audience and gather relevant information, discuss how to develop a topic, and organize the writing. This is kind of outlining. And then it's time to add more details, right? Outline means skeleton. There's no flesh and blood, right? You have to add more details. Then revise. The purpose of revising is reassessing the arguments, reviewing the evidence, or refining the purposes, right? I'm going to go through more deeper in later slides. But anyway, in here, they'll have to change everything, right? It's not like, of course, they can keep their topic, but they can change the order, or they can change their like logical point, or they can change the like key details, right? You know, with the revision stage, students know what the good writing looks like. They need to know how we can fix it in a more effective way. That kind of lesson will be happening. Then edit. It's all about like clean writing, right? Spelling, more errors, grammatical errors, punctuation, like something like that. This is kind of proofread stage. And then with the clean writing, that will have to present the writing in front of other people. Okay, so usually US ELA program, they connect presentation and writing closely. When they go to secondary level, they always have to talk about their own writing, like a discussion format. Okay, that's why they need to know how to do it. So if you do not have enough time, I don't think I have time to go through every single steps over here. But in Korea, we also lack of time, right? I'm not so sure it's the same thing with you, but I think you do have limited time. That's why in Korea, we can skip everything, but only draft and revise, because in these two, there are some writing traits instructions. It will accumulate, right? Other things is also very necessary too, but if you do not have enough time, just go through draft and revise lesson only. Okay, so it takes about 2 classes. Okay, because if you, of course, it depends. If you have your students write their own writing in the classroom, then it takes 2 classes. But if you're just talking about what it is, and then activity and revision activity, and that's it, and then writing and revise happening at home, then you can actually finish it all there, like in classes or on a half classes. Okay, that much simpler. But using every steps over here, I think it takes about 3 classes at least. Okay, so writing job should be done at home. Okay, so I want to show you draft and revise as an example. As you can see here, we only have outline. Maria Celebrates Brazil is about family celebration. So students will write exact same topic, same genre. Now what they have to do is try to look for more details, right? What details? Descriptive details. We learned this in the strategies. So they know what descriptive details mean. And with this excerpt, actually they are looking for the details, like a bright hot kitchen, May speaks Portuguese, and there'll be more events description like this. And then you can go back to story, because we already went through visualize and author's crafts. We are going to apply these skills to my writing, okay? So use the paragraph as a model to start writing. Think about details that describe your setting. Include descriptive details in the words your characters speak. Something like that, right? They're gonna read and they're gonna practice more, and they're gonna have more details in their own skeleton, okay? So they always revisit their own writing. So for example, like this one, they try out food, see how we dress and how we live, right? And then author's craft to show like strong feeling. This author actually adds some punctuation mark, like exclamation, sometimes question, right? So using that, they'll understand. So they might have their own drafts right now, adding all the details and then punctuation mark there. Now it's time to revise. As you can see here, there's a strong openings. Strong opening is very important because it's gonna grab the reader's attention right away, right? So strong openings can describe a problem a character faces or has. Think about details that show what the character feels about the problem. Dialogue or what a character says can show strong feelings. This is kind of quick tip. And then you can move on to this excerpt, right? This is kind of wrong draft. Do you think it has strong opening? I don't think so, because I don't see any strong feelings or dialogues or anything, or exclamation mark. So your students have to revise this draft model to the right model, okay? So using this tip, you can actually change or revise this draft model like this. And then you can move on to practice book. Practice book is in the website, right? You can actually use this one and they will learn more. For example, this one has good example, right? Maria didn't know what to do. This is strong opening, right? She lost her headband for the parade. Like this one, exclamation mark. It shows strong feeling about Maria. And then maybe the readers will be curious about it. And then they can move draft model. This one has some problem. That is why they need to go through this revision question over here and then try to figure out characters, setting, and events. The interesting events, right? Maria store, and she was upset because she forgot her money, right? So these are good hints. Based on that, they need to change or revise this draft model like this, using the strong opening, right? Unbelievable, I forgot to bring my money. This is too dramatic, I know, but this is kind of modern writing. So I want to make it more dramatic to give like strong effects to your students or my students, right? Of course, this one is very easy to develop, like teachers level. So don't worry, it takes like less than 5 minutes. We can talk about your model, and then they're gonna develop their own writing or revision, and then you can actually pair up, and then you can go through the peer conference, right? So they can give or get some feedback each other. Okay, this is how you teach or how you related the vocabulary and reading and other integration. So I think when you teach this, I think you can get more core of the language, okay? This is not just language skills, but it's all about thinking skills at the same time. So I think using this USELA program, your students have more thoughtful and insightful learning experience, okay? Any questions about how to write or how to read or any skills? It was quite a long session, right? I understand. If you have any questions later on, please let me know with like via email or Ray or Amy. I will tackle down any questions you might have. But this is just part of it, and I just briefly go through. Okay, so if you need more detail or anything, I think it's better to have like detailed sessions later on. Okay, yeah, like the Ray just left the link in the chat box. Is it chat box, right? Yes. So you can actually leave your opinion about this session. Okay. Okay, I think we can wrap it up, right? Ray, you can do it. Ray, you wanna wrap it up, or should I wrap it up? Okay, so
非常感谢各位呀，非常感谢各位老师，然后非常感谢 Rina 今天的分享，还有感谢各位老师的参加。那我们有准备一个问卷放在我们的 chat box， 那可以请老师给我们一些任何的一些建议，然后或者是一些回馈。对，那非常感谢各位老师，也再次感谢 Rina。Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For your time.
大期待老师参加后面的session，感谢我们再分享给大家，谢谢哦，拜拜，
拜拜，Thank you，
拜拜，拜拜。